right? But other structures, maybe half of every structure might be outfitted for Mars, and the other half of the structure is devoted to whatever the marketing department of the company that sponsored that structure wants it to be. So if one of the structure was sponsored by John Deere Tractor, they might sell you a few lawnmowers, John Deere riding on lawnmowers, and that's the price you pay for commercialism.
As long as they have a methane-powered one.
A methane-powered lawnmower. Yeah.
John Deere, not one.
Right. Yeah. So by the way, if you don't have to go to the desert, you could do it outside of any major city. You just build a fake crater. So when you stand in the bottom of the crater, these buildings are around you and they kind of shield the view of the palm trees or the pine trees or the skyscrapers. And each of those buildings would have a logo of whatever company sponsored them. And don't forget the gift shop. Okay, I already mentioned that. By the way, that little model there was college students at the very first International Space University summer session. They were trying to make a drag line where you can drag lunar regolith up into a trailer. Okay. I think I'm basically out of time. I have about 20 more slides.
Who owns Biosphere?
Biosphere? Okay, do people know about Biosphere? That was it. Whoops.
Can you relocate this near Biosphere?
We actually talked with someone connected with Biosphere twice. So there's no speaker after me, right? Okay. The land was put up for sale, and it was sold for subdivision development. There's going to be houses around it, but the Biosphere structure itself, they're definitely going to keep. I haven't heard what they're going to use it for. I was out there several years ago, and they had about half of it open for tours for the public. People will pay, lower right, people will pay money to get sick. You can, you can sell tickets and put people in a gyroscope and put them through astronaut training. The kids in the upper right are on a green screen TV, so they can see a television image of them either floating in space or in front of a lunar habitat or something. Oh yeah, and these guys are simulating Martian gravity or lunar gravity. Okay, some of the structures might look like these. You could even have, competing designs lined up next to each other. I came up with a masonry technique many, many years ago. Kim Stanley Robinson wrote it into Red Mars. The idea is you build, you dig into a hillside if you can, otherwise just dig down, get a nice firm foundation, build up masonry columns and walls and vaults, line it with plastic, cover it with enough dirt to hold the air pressure. So this is the hillside settlement that we designed, and this is a cross-section of it. Next slide shows what it might look like on Earth. Okay, so here's on Mars. On Earth, when you're in this area, it feels like you're on Mars. But behind it is a 3-story high place for doing that 3S gravity jumping on the bungee cords, or any, assembling something that needs a tall space, maybe classrooms and office space around the side, and then a slightly smaller pretend earth berm pretending to hold the pressure in. Okay, here's another design. This is this is the manufacturing place area where you make fiberglass, and then you wind the fiberglass in here, bring it into the airlock, outfit it, and connect it together and make your modular town. And so, close up on this inflatable, we call it the water molecule or the Mickey Mouse, because the cross section is like either a water molecule or Mickey Mouse's ears, upside down. So on Mars, it would look like this. You'd have a flat floor, machinery, and these balconies for inspecting, and you'd be continuously winding these big fiberglass habitats inside there. radiation shielding. The version on Earth would be set up as a museum or exhibits or rover races during the day, banquets at night for corporate clients. So again, there's the Mars version, and here's the fake Mars on Earth. One of the most efficient ways is fiberglass cylinders. Here's one for scale, about 5 meters in diameter, which is tiny bit smaller than this room. So it's maybe up to this fake ceiling and around the edge, and maybe from about here to David. So about that big is a cylinder. Pardon?
Is that something you guys made?
We didn't make this. I just happened to find the picture. But the point is, you can manufacture fiberglass tanks of this size.
This is a fiberglass tank.
This is the white tank. And so what you do is you manufacture fiberglass tanks on Mars, made from fiberglass produced on Mars. You'd have a hatch on the end of it, and you join them together at those hatches. Those hatches are 2.5 meters high, just big enough to walk through with a spacesuit. Okay, and here's one of the interiors that Brian Versteg laid out for us. This is how you join them together. Next slide is how you could make something like it on Mars, but this is a cutaway. So you'd have two of them, but open in between. And if you're bringing a class, say a teacher has brought her students, you could have 24 students milling around in here, and the round sections on the sides show what it would look like on Mars. By the way, there is actually some Martian masonry at MDRS. It's not widely known. Just a fun experiment. If somebody has a wild idea of some construction techniques, you can try them out. So. There are some examples. These particular ones couldn't be pressurized, but ones like it probably could.
Well, have you taught Bigelow about whether he's got a bunch of inflatable stuff transferable to it?
We talked with people in the Bigelow Houston office once, and but they're pretty well focused on their thing. Now, depending on who puts up the money, you could make it Mars-oriented or Mars plus Moon plus, living at L5 or space tourism. And if you have the broad focus, then you definitely would have mock-ups of low Earth orbit space hotels like Bigelow's. I skipped over the crater design, but one design would be could be in Florida or outside of the Johnson Space Center, and you would build buildings around in a circle and then cover the inside to look like a fake crater. And then you'd put up a lot of your modules in the bottom of the crater, but around the top of the crater you might have orbital modules that are sticking up and as if they're kind of somewhat up in the air, and they're also visible as other people drive down the highway. So some of those would be, it could be Bigelow Space Hotel modules. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of talk about lava tubes. And can you explain how that would work, or how you would build a head?
Okay, I'm not a firm believer in living in lava tubes, but the idea is there was a lot of lava came up out of the ground and made a smooth flow going downhill and just covered an incredibly big area. But it cools and hardens on the top and continues to flow underneath. And as it cools, the liquid flow is constricted to a single stream. And then if the source of lava is cut off, the lava that's going down this stream continues to flow, and it just empties out, and you're left with a fairly uniform tunnel, and they can go for miles. And some of them are pretty strong. So the idea is you find one that has partially collapsed, and you go down into the collapsed section, and then you go horizontally into the uncollapsed portion. And one proposal is to build airlock doors in the tube, seal any cracks, and pressurize it, and just live in the lava tube. Another proposal is to put inflatable habitats inside there, so you don't pressurize the tube, but you use it for radiation shielding. And we certainly could have, a mock-up of something like that. Advantages of lava tubes is once you get in it, you have a lot of radiation shielding. You might even have the pressure containment as well. Disadvantage.
You may have water.
I hadn't heard that. I don't know that there'd be.
Depends on how far north you are away from the equator.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of variables on it.
Okay.
It depends on dew points and it depends on how cool the lava tubes are. And then there's some speculation some of the lava tubes may have already trapped water inside.
Okay. Disadvantage of lava tubes is they're only in certain places. You can't have one exactly where you want it. So you got to go where they are.
Make your own.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't use lava. Georgi Petrov, who did some of our design work, sent me these pictures from Bulgaria. There's this is an example of a living history center. You can go there and talk to workmen who are using the techniques that would have been used a couple hundred years ago. And so this is the similar sort of thing to this Mars future living history aspect of it. This is Williamsburg, Virginia, and again, good place to have corporate events or weddings or whatever. Big tourist area. So I want to capitalize on some of that appeal. Argo Santi in Arizona, experimental living and construction community is another example of how this appeals to people. Finances. I wanted to get in under a $10 million budget for something, and I tried, but it doesn't work. So I removed all the figures. It's several tens of millions, but most of it would come out of marketing departments from major corporations. And again, you can start small. By the way, that is a commercially available pressurized rover that is missing the pressure shell. But notice how it's rounded. You could imagine a curved door put on it. It wouldn't take a lot of effort to make that look like a pressurized rover.
Those little smart cars are very similar to that.
Okay, yeah. Here's a list of, once you get the initial part of it built, here's a list of some of the sources of money to maintain it and grow. Just people paying admission, selling food, donations, sponsorships. I mentioned, let's see, symposia, and because you have this education orientation, a lot of companies that would not normally give to something like this might be willing to buy tickets to send disadvantaged kids to it. Insurance companies in Hartford, Connecticut do that kind of thing. They won't give to a space cause, but they will give tickets to the inner city kids to go to museums and things like that. Okay, I think that's a good place to, credits. Yeah, Georgi, Adam, a bunch of people worked on this. So conclusion, I think to reach the general public and the future decision makers, give them something that's hands-on, where they can go and experience it, find out what it's like to live on Mars, Moon, or asteroids. It's quite feasible to build this today. It's the cost of a hotel. Yeah,
I'm curious as to why Disney in their Tomorrowland and Future sections hasn't capitalized on this interest in Mars and made a smaller version of this in one of their areas.
Probably because the people who run Disneyland are probably not under the direct control of Lassiter.
yeah.
Lassiter is interested in doing things that are fun and interesting rather than just making money.
Yeah, but this could be made fun and interesting.
Okay. I think there is a fair bit of interest, but everybody assumes that if you're in space, you're in a spacesuit and you're in a spacecraft. And there is a little bit of that. There are places you can go and try on a spacesuit and drive little remote control rovers. And I don't